Well, I hope it is going well, because we've interrupted this session so that I can say, Sub-Officer Roger Campbell, tonight this is your life.
You are joking.
Already on parade, Roger, ranks of faces familiar to you, in particular your mother and father, Joyce and Cyril, and your brothers Russell and David. Now, with all your work on London's burning, we have to remember that that is television and that you are one of a team of real-life firefighters. In more than 20 years, you've been on the front line of the emergency service. In London's burning, we see how officers have had to cope with tragedy and then get on with their lives. And it was while you were coming to terms with the King's Cross blaze in 1987 that you met the girl you were to marry. And she's here with your daughter Harriet, your wife Sophie. Sophie, tell us how you met.
We actually met at a Christmas charity luncheon, and I was there with various members of my family. And Roger was there with some of his colleagues, being honoured for the work that they did at King's Cross, which was exactly a month beforehand. And they were all in uniform, looking very dashing. And nods and winks were exchanged, and it went from there, really.
And tonight's surprise was your idea.
Yes, it was. I wrote off in secret. He's a great husband and a wonderful father, and he very much loves his job and the work that he does. So I thought it might be nice.
And of course, Roger, we knew that you wouldn't be too fazed by the cameras, because for the past 2 years you've been helping to create the action that grips viewers of London's burning.
There's two real messages. For the fire brigade, we need to show people what the potential is in a fire and how dangerous that can be, and that way educate them a little bit. But also for the viewers, we need to push the limits as far as we can.
Since our surprise, they've regrouped and called in a few more of Blackwall's regulars, past and present. Jonathan Guy Lewis, Michael Garner, Ben Onwukwe, Edward Peel, Heather Peace, Brad Gorton, Al Hunter Ashton, Jim Alexander, Shirley Greenwood, and Fuman Dar. Now, Edward Peel, you're the new governor of Blackwall. Like your character, Roger is a stickler for detail.
Yeah, Roger's a great teacher. He supervises an intensive 2-week course, which is part of the brigade's 16-week course for recruits. But he not only teaches firefighting techniques. I remember one day I was standing around with my hands in my pockets, and he said, the governor wouldn't do that. But to us, Roger is the governor. We're only acting, but he and his colleagues do it for real, day in, day out, often without thanks. And I think I'd like to take this opportunity from us all to say that we salute him and all firefighters. Thanks,
And friends from the cast of London's Burning were among your guests in June last year when you received your Long Service and Good Conduct Medal for 20 years exemplary service. In that time, you've been based at Westminster, Paddington, Soho and Mill Hill. Now, Soho, one of the busiest stations in the London Fire Brigade, alone answers 5,000 calls a year. They're not all fires, and most don't get reported, but some are human catastrophes on an appalling scale. These are just some of the major incidents where you were in action.
An amateur cameraman took these pictures minutes after the explosion at Harrods, and it appears that the police officers killed and injured were caught in the blast as they examined the car in which the bomb had been placed.
King's Cross station in London has been evacuated this evening after fire broke out underground. Thousands of commuters were in the station when the fire ripped through and devastated it. The victims underground who didn't stand a chance. The heroes who tried to get them out.
The living quarters at Inglis Barracks in Mill Hill were wrecked by an explosion.
The force of the explosion blew out the walls and the roof collapsed. Several were trapped in the rubble, and it took up to half an hour for rescuers to dig them out.
A pleasure boat with more than 100 people on board has sunk in the River Thames in central London.
It happened in the middle of the night with terrifying suddenness. The Marchioness was hit by a sand dredger, the Bowbell.
The sinking of the Marchioness and King's Cross are among the most tragic incidents you've attended during your time at Soho. Since you moved on, several of your colleagues have relocated or retired, but tonight they answer an old command once more.
Crew shun. For your duties, fall out.
Reunited, the firefighters of Soho. Roger Thomas Allen Kendall, this is your life, and your parents picked prophetic first names for the future firefighter. Your initials, RTA, match the emergency services abbreviation for road traffic accidents. And on the way to hospital to have your son, Joyce, you nearly had an accident yourself.
I certainly did. We were running very late, and Roger's never early, usually, and we were late again. And we just made it to Central Middlesex Hospital, into the car park. The ambulance driver told me off a strip, and Roger arrived, and he's been here ever since.
If you'd had him in the car park, the initials would have been NCP, I suppose.
Yes, exactly.
But your mother did make it inside the Central Middlesex Hospital, and you're born at 10 a.m. on May the 23rd, 1958. You're the third of 4 boys. There you are with your great-grandmother. And racing to an early incident, and on hose drill. Your younger brother, Steve, now lives in Australia, but your parents still live in the house where you all grew up, in Northolt. Your father, who lost a leg in the war, became a toolmaker. You go to Northolt Primary School like your brothers before you. David, the Kendall boys were more interested in out-of-school activities.
Yeah, that's right, Michael. Dad, having lost his leg and being more disabled, wanted to ensure that we all had external activities. And some of the things that Roger did was the Cubs, the Scouts, swam freely, swimming club, and was even a choir boy.
Russell, it was the first Northolt Cubs that Roger's future took shape.
Yeah, Roger did took many badges, but the one that thrilled him the most was the firefighting badge, where he had the opportunity to visit the first fire station.
Well, if firefighting hadn't become your life, you might still have found yourself on the screen.
Yes, Roger, we could have been celebrity vets.
Your childhood pal, Mark Eade. So, Mark, you were animal lovers.
Yes, we was indeed. Can you remember the time we rescued the squirrel from underneath the car? We took it back to the house and we nurtured it back to life again. And another time, I remember we went to the circus for all day long. We worked as hard as we could, helping with the animals and all the llamas and that. And we didn't get a brass halving. All we got was llama tassel, do you remember?
Green and white.
That's it. I think it's about time you had it back.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much, mate. Cheers.
Now, when you were 11, you decided to broaden your horizons, but Joyce, he didn't get very far.
No, we had a bit of a difference of opinion, as we often do, and he decided to pack his bags and leave home. And he did. He left, wasn't coming back. He got as far as the front gate, stood behind the wall, very sullen, and stood there about 3.5 hours and decided he was starving hungry, and came back in, round the back way, into the kitchen. There you are.
Well, it was all a bit casual. Your mother even had time to take your photograph. That same year, you go to Stanhope Secondary Modern School and you join the first Greenford Scouts pack. And Russell, one day at school, your brother faced a caning from the headmaster.
Yeah, you might remember this, Rog. He's a good boy, in a way. But on this particular day, there was a minor misdemeanour, and he was summoned to the headmaster's office for a caning. And Roger refuted that charge, and he went into the headmaster's office, and the cane was just about to be pulled, and Roger said, "I've had enough of this," and walked out of the headmaster's office, crossed the playground, down to the local police station where Bob Claridge, Scoutmaster, worked as the local bobby. And the next minute we knew, he was walking back across the playground with the policeman, straight into the headmaster's office, and sat there with all the gift of the gab that he's got, coffee, tea, and the next thing, the headmaster and him, best friends.
Is this how you remember it, Roger?
Yeah, exactly. Your Honour.
Man of influence even then. You join Ealing Swimming Club and you represent Middlesex at an international event in Germany. You leave school aged 15 to take up an apprenticeship with the London Electricity Board. You prove a bright spark. You even win a medal for your roll plugging technique. And it's not your only prize, because by now you're also a graduate of the Les Wilde's dance class and winner of another medal for your cha-cha-cha. You're loving this, I know. Well, age 17, you, your brother Steve and some pals take up an unusual new hobby. I'm pleased to reveal that you join the Arrowhead Group, which celebrates the culture of Native American Indians. You wear traditional costumes and you meet up for powwows, and all paths, it seems, lead to television. In 1978, you and the Arrowhead Group take centre stage on Blue Peter.
You're really on the warpath, eh?
Wearing the war paint with you are fellow braves Ian Farge Bennett and Peter MacDonald. Ian, you're now a lorry driver, aren't you?
Yes.
Were you a willing warrior then?
I was, but I stayed at the back, nice and quiet, and Roger was the one with the loincloth, the feathers, who did a Morecambe and Wise all the way round the BBC Circle when we were up here.
But Peter, you got your friends into this.
The whole purpose of the club was to actually show the real side of the Native Americans and their plight, which Roger did very well. But we also had a lot of fun doing it, drank a lot of beer, met a lot of girls.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
See you later.
You hand in your notice to the Electricity Board in 1978. By now, you've decided your future. You're going to be a firefighter. On November the 27th, at the age of 20, you join London Fire Brigade and report to the training centre at Southwark. You were leading the way for another good friend.
Yes, Roger. You really stood out during training.
It's Malcolm McCarthy. So Roger was a shining example, was he?
He certainly was. 20 years ago, if a fireman's helmet got damaged, you could paint it with special paint that was carried at the fire station. Roger didn't know that because he was a recruit. So we popped out, got some paint, sprayed it up, and it looked lovely. Next day on parade, much to his horror and everybody else's amusement, he discovered that Ford Capri Yellow was perhaps not the best colour to paint his fire helmet, and he stood out like a police beacon.
Lovely memory, thank you. Now, Roger, your first assignment is to Westminster Fire Station. Apart from the risks and occasional monotony of the job, there is always time for a spot of healthy ribbing. Station Officer Bruce Hode, Roger's driving is a tender spot.
Just a little bit, yes. In his time, Roger's managed to take a chunk out of the wall at Buckingham Palace, hit a lamppost. On another occasion, whilst driving me back from a call, managed to drive forwards into a skip and then reverse back into a brand new Jaguar. But perhaps his finest hour was when he hit an Evening Standard newsstand in the Strand. And for many months after that, he could never pass the watch without a communal cry of, "Standard!"
Right, forget the driving, that's embarrassing, I know. Let's talk about food. Ted Temple, Roger was in charge of catering for a while and he was keen to control the budget.
He came in on one night, dear old boys, he said, "Look at this, what a bargain.
10,000 tea bags for £1. We thought, oh, great, Roger. I think it's Earl Grey, he said. And there we were. We found out afterwards it was disgusting. 10,000 tea bags, but they were full of sawdust.
But by November 1986, you are promoted to leading firefighter and you transfer to Paddington, and then to A24 Soho. You're assigned to Red Watch. On November the 18th, 1987, you and Red Watch are at the centre of one of London's most horrendous fire disasters, King's Cross. Rush hour commuters noticed wisps of smoke. In no time, number 4 escalator on the Piccadilly line underground had become an inferno. 30 pumping appliances and more than 150 firefighters tackled one of the fiercest fires in London's history. As well as the choking smoke, the burning paint in the underground was letting off poisonous cyanide gas. And Martin Powell, Roger played an important role that night.
Yeah, that's right, Michael. He found himself in the role of BA control officer, which ensures that the men going down and the firefighters going into the King's Cross fire came back safely. Normally he'd have 10 men and 2 emergency crew, but such were the circumstances, he found himself with over 40. And to a firefighter, the most important person is the BA control officer.
Well, the first fire officer in charge at the scene had been your governor, Station Officer Colin Townsley. Helping passengers to safety, he was overcome by fumes and died. Back at Soho Station, you found yourself in charge and you had to rally the men. Martin, another challenge for Roger.
Yes, Roger was faced with the unenviable task of being a young officer in charge. We've just lost our governor, our sub-officers in hospital, and Roger had to take charge of the watch. This he did with professionalism and with wit as well, to make sure that all the spirits were kept together. I remember going out on a call, it was just a false alarm, but Roger certainly earned the respect of his colleagues and still does to this day.
Well, on Friday, November the 27th that year, central London came to a standstill for Colin Townsley's funeral. Outside King's Cross, 1,000-strong Guard of Honour stood in silence. You were one of those carrying the coffin. Colin Townsley was posthumously awarded the George Medal for gallantry. In August 1989 comes another tragic incident which is still making headlines, the sinking of the Marchioness pleasure boat in the Thames. 51 people died, and the inquiry into what really happened goes on. Someone else at the scene was the MP for North Southwark and Bermondsey, Simon Hughes.
Roger, I'm going in and out of fire stations all the time. I know the regular jobs that firefighters do. I know that people think of them as dealing with fires, but that's not the beginning, it's not the end of what they do either. And on behalf of the wider community, I want to thank you for what you did on that August night. I want to thank you for what you have done over the years, and I want to pay tribute to the sort of work, saving lives and risking lives, that you epitomise and you represent. We all owe you a great tribute and are greatly, greatly in your debt.
By this time, Roger, you'd met Sophie, and you marry on April the 25th, 1992, at St Martin's Church in picturesque Ainsford in Kent. 2 years later, Harriet is born, followed by Katie, and just last year, Freya. After years of service in the front line with the London Fire Brigade, you transfer in 1994 to a completely different job, overseeing safety regulations at licensed premises. 3 years later, you moved to Central Operations at Brigade Headquarters in Lambeth. And then, show business. You're seconded to the TV series London's Burning, when the producers are looking for a new advisor to the show. An old hand who welcomed you on board filed this report for us before going on a family holiday. Blue Watch's George Green, Glenn Murphy.
Roger, congratulations. Fantastic, eh? Yeah, what I tell you, joining the 40 Club, life gets better, mate, doesn't it? George Green and yourself have both done 20 years in the Fire Brigade, and I just want to thank you for adding a bit more realism into the show, and so we can be a bit more relaxed, and it makes it more comfortable for the rest of us. I'll drink a toast to you on the beach, yeah? Have a good night. Ciao.
Ben Onwukwe, Roger took to showbiz life quite well.
Yes, he did. Not only does he look good in Indian red dress, dances well, is an inspiration to us on the fireground when we're filming those scenes, but he's also a great choral singer. which we discovered a couple of years ago because he joined us at the Albert Hall in the Leukemia Research concert that we do every year. And he joined us, and we discovered he's got a fantastic singing voice. And he joins me as the bass baritone, giving it large. Isn't that right, Roger? Can you remember any of the lines? In Dolce Jubilo.
I've forgotten them, actually.
Yeah.
The important job you do for London's burning is also acknowledged by London Fire Brigade, represented tonight by all your colleagues here, and by Assistant Chief Officer Southern Command, Lawrence Gill. So, a character reference, please.
Yes, and it's got to be a good one, I'm afraid. Roger is not only representing the London Fire Brigade here tonight, but he's representing all firefighters in this country, and he's doing it very well, I have to say. You've seen some of the incidents tonight, but they are just a few that managed to be captured on film, and I know that Roger has been to many, many incidents, some more horrific than you've seen tonight. But Roger, your dedication and bravery has only just been touched on. You're a very humble man, and we can only just touch on what you've done for the London Fire Brigade. And of course, London's Burning, which is his forte. But of course, London's Burning does a lot for us. It's not only does it entertain people, but it actually shows the fire safety message which we want to get across, because all the firefighters in here this evening are dedicated and as brave, and we'd rather they didn't turn up to people's homes. And I think London's Burning does an enormous job to get that message across that fire is a dangerous enemy. Roger, thank you very much. You do so much for us. Thank you.
Another challenge to the protectors of the public has been the threat of terrorist attacks on London landmarks. On December the 17th, 1983, you rushed to answer a call to a Knightsbridge packed with Christmas shoppers. A bomb had exploded outside Harrods. 5 people were killed instantly, another victim died later. You were one of the first on the scene to administer first aid to the injured. Among them, a family with 2 small boys.
And we're here to say thank you, Roger, for all you did.
With his brother Ronnie, Mother Vilas and Aunt Mina, Rajan Palmer. Mina, the boys were 6 and 11 at the time. Tell us what happened.
Yes, thank you, Michael. We were at Harrods doing some shopping, and we'd taken the boys to see Santa Claus. Just as we were coming out of the store, there was a massive explosion. There was a lot of glass flying everywhere, and we were all injured. The boys were injured in their legs. Roger, I believe, was the first on the scene there. He helped us stay very calm, took us all to a police van because the ambulances couldn't get through, and we were all taken into St Thomas's Hospital.
Rajan, the story doesn't end there.
No, Michael. Whilst we were recovering in hospital, Roger came to see us, which was much appreciated. He actually brought me a fire helmet, which I still have till today, which was signed by himself and the crew, which I treasure. And I'd just like to say thank you very much, Roger.
You're more than
It's a great pleasure. It's always been kept.
Thank you all. Well, you're obviously not a man without friends, and of course you've got a large and close family. You're one of 4 brothers, and now you're the father of 3 girls. Harriet is here. Let's meet her sisters, with family friend Jane Hodges, Katie, who's 2, and 9-month-old Freya. Now, earlier this evening, I surprised you at work, and not long ago, you planned a surprise of your own when you flew to Melbourne to visit your younger brother, Steve, just before the birth of his own baby daughter.
But tonight, Roger, it's my turn to surprise you.
All the way from Australia with your godson, 5-year-old Christian, his brother number 4, Steve. So, Steve, life is full of surprises.
It very much is with Roger around. Just just about 2 or 3 months ago, Roger came over to Australia to a surprise visit for me. And on the day that he arrived, it was the day that my wife and I went into hospital to have our third child. Roger had to wait quite a while for us to come home and for me to come home. And I arrived home in the early hours of the morning at 4 o'clock. And I got home and the phone went off, and it was Roger. I said, "Hello, Roger." I said, "You know, it's 4:30 over here." He said, "Well, I heard that Karen was having a few problems with the pregnancy, and I just wanted to see how things were going." And I said, "Well, just as it happens, we've had a little girl today, Sarah." And he said, "Oh, it's fantastic." He said, "You know, I'd love to come over and I'd love to wet the baby's head with you. I'd love to have a beer with you." And on that, the phone went dead. And I thought, "Oh, that's a bit strange." Turned around, went into the kitchen, and there's Roger holding 2 beers. And it's, I also wanted to say that Roger is a major part of our family. I love him dearly and missed him greatly, and I wouldn't miss this for anything. Michael, it's fantastic.
Roger Kendall, this is your life.
And This Is Your Life returns next week. Troublesome pupils or troublesome schools? Who's to blame for the state of the education system? Classrooms at War investigates after the news.
This Saturday is the final of the biggest club rugby tournament in Europe.
No one's stopping that man of 19 stone. Northampton now inch towards the line. He's given the try.
It's Northampton versus Munster.
You can't say they don't deserve this.
Join the big England Island party at Twickenham.
I don't think I can recall an atmosphere in a club game like this.
You can see it on Grandstand at 3 o'clock on BBC One.
They came forward. I indicated to them two terrorists to the front. They could have still been capable of putting rounds down.
So they finished them off?
So the guys came in and you know, put rounds into them.
Finished them off?
It's, you know, you win the firefight, and that's it.
But they're wounded, they could have been arrested, couldn't they?
Yeah, but you don't know that, do you? Far better for them to be dead than us.
A major new series, Brits, continues Wednesday at 9:30